Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give everyone a couple more seconds just for people who are lagging a bit to join us. So please be patient. Okay, I think we can start. So hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I firstly want to welcome all of our colleagues from Ziegwerk, but also especially all our external attendees from all over the world. We are very pleased you're joining us today. Today, our speakers will be discussing innovations for laminated packaging structures to enable circularity. Before we get started, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping to ensure that you can interact with myself and with the speakers. Firstly, all attendees are automatically muted. If you want to ask the presenters a question, please type your question in the question box, not in the chat box, because I can't monitor both and your question might get lost. And then the presenters will answer as many as possible during the Q&A session. If we don't get to your question, we apologize and we will probably follow up with you after the session, just in private. In the event that we experience any technical difficulties, please just stay online and wait for further instructions. And a recording of this webinar will be made available at a later stage. So without further ado, I would now like to welcome our speakers for today, Bilal Habib and Dr. Stefan Hipp, who will introduce themselves and their work. So over to you, Bilal.
Thank you, Carla. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. And I hope you've been able to attend one of our webinars before, and there's more to come in this series. And we hope today is informative. So my name is Bilal Habib. I'm head of global brand owner collaboration at Ziegwerk. What we do is we partner with brand owners and retail partners to improve packaging performance through inks and coatings and specificational and performance measures. I'll hand over to my colleague Stefan to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Bilal. So my name is Stefan. I'm with Ziegwerk for already 20 years, and I'm very happy to be part of this webinar presentation on circular packaging solutions. Happy to have you all with us, and really looking forward to an informative presentation for you and a lively Q&A in the end.
Thanks, Stefan. So we begin with who we are, Ziegwerk. We enable circular solutions for flexible packaging in this particular example that we're going to show you. So enable is a big word. We are a fundamental part of the performance aspect of packaging. And here, what we want to talk about today is one potential solution which helps the recycling of flexibles. We all know that the recycling of flexibles is quite a problematic area. And we also know that companies are trying very, very hard to get here. So today you will see a solution. And one thing that Ziegwerk is very, very clear about is that we look at things from a system level, as you can see here. Now, people are increasingly familiar with the whole circularity visual displays and how companies are communicating and how this has generally been communicated. We're particularly excited about two things that are going to be big enablers. One is EPRs, which will be most likely different around the world, but most likely some form of incentive to kickstart the financial aspect of the circular economy, because we need incentivization to make this happen. And of course, technology to make this happen. So these two fundamental building blocks are big enablers to get the whole chain moving even faster. We, of course, also see a sweet spot of innovation. Inputs coming from the consumer end through consumer customer brands into the area of the industry, as well as industry inputs coming through the other end to create this innovation space for new formats. Of course, we're seeing multitudes of ideas all the time, lots of initiatives, lots of solutions coming up towards a circular economy. And this is great, you know. And with this, we get into the area of what's required, of course, the typical 4 ingredients. We need this more than ever. We're going through one of the biggest transformations, i.e. the plastics industry in this space. When you've got an industry that has been fine-tuned to almost perfection for what it does post-World War II over 75 plus years, and the speed with which we need to transform this, as we all know, it's not an easy task. And the current ways of working will not be enough. We need to break out of the linear relationships. We need to break out of, process-driven thinking at individual steps. We need to do a lot of things simultaneously, concurrently, and in steps and sequence. So we need ever more collaboration, ever more leadership, ever more insights across the chain. Now, to help brand owners, a big chunk of this is information. I'm separating here between information and implementation. At an information level, the entire industry has a right and should be pushing to inform brand owners and decision makers and retailers about the art of the possible. What is actually even possible? What could be possible? What hypotheses should we be testing and learning together? When it, however, comes to implementation, of course, brand owners have a contractual setup in the value chain, and there's a way of doing things, and that's absolutely different. That's separate, and that can be a choice of brand owners and retailers. But another big thing that we clearly see as a bugbear for brand owners, and having been one myself, I know this, is that's all fine to understand the challenges. It's all fine to read about the circular economy and the need. We get the sense of urgency. We've all made our pledges. A lot of race is going on until 2025, 2030. So we've got a small window to make things happen. But the big question is, how do I move from where I am today? Now, that's the big question. Entrenched supply chains, entrenched capex, very, very finely balanced, fine-tuned performance for packaging from a cost efficiency perspective, attributes, shelf life, all of these things, you can't just switch them on and off. And it takes a while for consumers to come along the journey. It takes a long time to change expectations and performance accordingly. And so we understand that brand owners have a huge, huge challenge, even if they want to transform some of their packaging. And there's also a big cat and mouse, chicken and egg story about who moves first, who can move second, what enablers are there in the first place. And so we have a solution today that in some cases for very complex structures might end up being a permanent, semi-permanent solution. And for other structures along their journey towards more simplification on their layers and materials could be a stepping stone. But for this to happen, we need even more innovation enablers. And that is in this space. Again, from a system level perspective, we need innovation in the waste management space. We need even more incentivization for recycling partners to invest and create new technologies and partner with all of us to make things happen. Because the more enablers we have in this space, the more innovative formats we can create to enable circularity and keep material in the system as far as it's technically possible. So this is another big message that we want to push today and plead for support here. Yeah, Holy Grail number 2.0 is a great example. We're part of that initiative as well. And we're looking forward to more such initiatives coming about in the marketplace. Now, as mentioned, we are driven by system level change. So we know that source reduction is absolutely critical. We can't just be offsetting, compensating, and of course, we do our bit here as well. So we've got a multitude of solutions here in this space, as you can see. We're happy to take detailed discussions offline. We look at the holistic perspective for circularity, and the example that we're going to talk about today addresses one particular aspect, which is about making recyclable monoplastic a reality. We know, of course, there's a lot of examples going on, but there are structures that are very, very complicated and have to remain so for packaging performance and consumer expectations. And we want to address one of these examples today. So you're going to see a short video, after which my colleague, Dr. Stefan Hepp, will take you through the actual solution proposal, and then we'll have Q&A. So see you later. Thanks for listening.
Unfortunately, recycling of plastic packaging is still not common practice. The quality of recycled plastic is often a problem. ink remains in the material, often causing heavily colored recyclates with a distinctly unpleasant odor. These recycled materials can be used to make park benches or flower pots, but the quality is often not suitable for remanufacturing into commercial packaging. What a waste! With its strong commitment to the circular economy, SIGWORK has developed solutions to facilitate a better de-inking process, allowing printed packaging to be easily recycled into new packaging. Imagine a washing machine with incredibly clever features. The washing process first opens up the laminated materials to separate the glued layers and make the ink layer accessible for further treatment. Then ink and varnishes are completely removed from the material, and the wash water passes through a highly effective filter system. What remains is clean, reusable water and a very small amount of ink residue, plus a high volume of recycled plastics in good quality for new packaging material. That's how de-inking makes an important contribution to a self-contained cycle, which benefits both the environment and the economics of your business. Please contact us early to explore de-inking options for your individual packaging types. It's about time to make a change for our environment and a successful future. SIGWORK De-inking.
So, as you have seen, despite design for recycling approaches, the majority of especially flexible packaging material today remains not recyclable at all. And even if recycling can take place, the output material has a rather poor quality, leaving it often unsuitable to make new packaging out of it. Siegwerk has a strong focus how to change the situation. Yeah, we strive to make the majority of plastic packaging material not only recyclable, but even circular. So we are setting ground here to using higher shares of post-consumer recyclate in packaging material. The key process to do so is de-inking, using an industrial hot washing setup also for laminated packaging materials. And our key technology to facilitate such de-inking in an economic and ecological way is called delamination primer. Our overall target is to find a solution to keep the laminated structure but make it fit for recycling within existing recycling streams. Although surface printed structures became more accepted in between, laminates still dominate the packaging market for often good reasons. So keeping a laminated structure remains desirable for most FMCG brand owners. Protection of the filling good remains perfect, and packaging line performance stays on a high level. Correspondingly, our delamination primers are designed to keep the packaging specifications unchanged as far as possible, but making the laminate ready for de-inking. The primer is a printed layer that is compatible to a broad range of different material combinations. Nevertheless, we prefer to focus on monomaterial laminates as the resulting films can be recycled without further separation. And of course, delamination only takes place at the recycler under industrial conditions, and not already on the shelf in the supermarket, nor during consumption at home. So let's see how such a laminated structure looks in detail using our coffee pouch example here. The OPP layer in our example can remain as it is. It fits nicely into given recycling streams, but of course, also other materials work well with our delamination primer, like polyester, nylon, and also corresponding barrier films. And now the magic comes into play. Our delamination primer is, as said, a printable layer that can be applied in line using the typical printing technologies in flexible packaging, flexoprinting and rotogravure. The chemical composition of the primer does not lead to any compromise in product safety, And also technical specifications like bond strength values stay on a sufficient level according to our evaluation. But also the inks are decisive to make such a delamination-ready packaging structure successful. In any case, they need to fulfill all the typical requirements you expect from a printing ink to produce a convincing design. Strong colors and high opaque white inks that fit perfectly well to your given supply chain. And in any case, there is no compromise regarding any product safety requirement and the absence of critical raw materials like PVC for the sake of sustainability. But for the requirement to delaminate a structure, some specific aspects need to be ensured. This is, for instance, a compatibility to corresponding adhesives to maintain the bond strength levels. Although we at Siegwerk have the experience to tailor-make inks that fit perfectly well to such delamination-ready packaging, also other ink brands can be used in principle. As also already mentioned, the adhesive should be pre-evaluated to ensure the right performance in such a structure. The good news here is that a broad range of adhesives seem to work pretty well with our delamination-ready structure. And finally, a metallized OPP makes a structure laminate with good barrier properties and protect also quite sensitive filling goods. To ensure a proper sealing, a film type with a low temperature sealing layer is advisable. But of course, also other film types, as said, can be used adequately well, like a ceramic coated OPP layer, for instance. So using quite familiar packaging structures, we are able now to increase the sustainability level by implementing our delamination primer. Recycling becomes possible now, yielding a really good recyclate quality. So let's have a look how this works in practice. Within the hot washing process, the laminated structure separates in a way that the ink and the adhesive layers can be removed quantitatively. This is the crucial point that makes this innovative lamination structure the perfect partner for a meaningful recycling. By immersing the flake laminate into the washing bath, the delamination primer starts to dissolve smoothly. This initial stage just takes a few minutes at about 85 degrees centigrade. What happens with some minor delay is the chemical dissolution of the aluminum layer of the metallized OPP film as a consecutive step. This is a specific benefit of a metallized film that we make use here to generate a second layer of delamination primer, or to make a second layer of delamination primer basically unnecessary. Nevertheless, also structures using two plain film types can be delaminated by simply applying a second layer of a delamination primer correspondingly. The result in any case is the release of the ink and the adhesive layer. What is left behind are the two layers of clean OPP film that now can be separated from the washing bath for a subsequent re-extrusion step. So in a nutshell, the implementation of the delamination primer into a rather classical packaging structure provides a viable route towards real circularity without losing the benefit of laminated films. And to show you how it works in real life, here is an example that demonstrates under lab conditions how delamination of plastic packaging works to yield clean flakes out of a hot washing step. The resulting material is clean enough to be used as post-consumer recyclate in many different packaging systems, reducing the need for new plastic material. So this means that from a technology point of view, Siegwerk is ready to support the introduction of a new generation of laminated materials that comply to a good extent with the expectation of a circular economy. But what is necessary to explain to you as well is that today the corresponding value chain is not yet ready to process such kind of material. In particular, a hot washing step is not yet implemented at a typical recycler to digest such material accordingly. So on the one hand, we currently take effort to approach the value chain accordingly to further drive and establish a corresponding change in the close future. On the other hand, any early adaptation at brand owners and converters help to convince the corresponding value chain that this process is really able to provide a system level change towards real circularity. So that was the technical part, the information, and now I'm happy to switch over to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Very, very interesting. If you have any questions, please put them in the question box. We have a question that's come in. The question is, what is the on cost for a brand owner using a delaminated primer containing structure?
Yeah, of course you need to, I can pick that up. Of course you need to consider that with the additional layer and the additional work connected to apply this layer, there is some increased cost. It is for the time being not, let's say, easy to specify that because it depends on many different aspects. But when you look at the total cost of ownership of this packaging material, then I think it's important to consider that in the end, for instance, when also looking in the future to see potential plastic tax situations, EPR fees, and so on, that the total cost of ownership for this kind of activity in the end saves money. It saves money also to the brand owner, and it helps the brand owner to fulfill his sustainability pledges that many of the brand owners already made. And from my perspective, the total cost situation on at least long term is positive.
Great. Next question. Can the recyclate be used in food packaging applications? This with a view on food safety and migration issues.
Yeah. So we are speaking here today about mechanical recycling. And the outcome of mechanical recycling is today, from a legal point of view, not accepted to be used as primary food packaging. Yeah. When you speak about, or when you ask about, can it be used for packaging? I think that is a clear yes. So we can definitely think about using this material for secondary packaging, and we can also use this material for packaging types where there is no food stuff involved. Yeah. So you have seen this example with detergent packagings and so on. From my point of view, the potential to yield clean enough materials, clean enough post-consumer recyclate is good enough that this is something very well feasible. And therefore, it is something we encourage the value chain to explore further. And potentially in the future, it's also maybe an opportunity to use this material also probably even for primary food packagings, but it needs to be checked, of course. Yeah, but the potential is there. It's just a question to pick it up now and to drive this this opportunity forward consequently.
Great. Next question. Is the delamination primer suitable for retort application?
As far as I know, we didn't test in particular retort application for the time being. This is definitely something we can have a look into. The challenge here is, of course, when you do place the packaging material in typical retort retort conditions, then it's about high temperature retort, it's about steam or water bath, and this needs to be thoroughly checked. Yeah, if the laminated structure survives this, including the delamination primer. So we haven't checked that, but we are happy to pick up the challenge and to have a closer look into it.
Okay, next question. Are you in collaboration with waste managers or recyclers to determine if the washing process is practically feasible on a large, and then in brackets, international scale?
Yeah, that's sorry, or Bilal, you want to pick that up? Or?
Yeah. I can start it off and you can finish it off. I think this is the main point. We are, of course, in some discussions, and we have got proof of principles at a technical level, lab level, technical level. What we now need is serious partners with whom we can scale this up. We know that each country, each region has different infrastructural challenges, different levels of investment, and different levels of progression in maturity with technology. So this is not a one-size-fits-all answer right now in terms of recyclers, but we would like to scale this up, is the main message we have. And we're ready to work with whoever's available and interested to do this. I don't know if you can add something to that, Stefan.
Not much to add, indeed. I can only confirm basically that this is actually taking place. So we are talking to the value chain, but we are more than happy. The more people join this discussion, the more people create materials that can be delaminated, that can be de-inked. The more opportunities are there for the recyclers. Yeah, so it's basically also to break out of this if you want to call it a chicken egg situation. We need basically you. We need you to make sure that this great opportunity is also becoming a reality, and that even on a global scale.
Fantastic. All right, this is the next very specific question. How much delamination primer has to be applied? So this is specifically how many grams per area, and how much does it cost approximately, a range?
That's a very, very specific question. I think it needs a very specific answer. I mean, in general, these kinds of things we can take offline and discuss individually for requirements, but I'll hand it over to Stefan for a general answer if he has one.
Yeah, so the good news is the delamination primer can be applied with the currently well-established and available printing situations like rotogravure and flexo printing. So now you can already imagine what is the average coating weight that we are aiming at. What is a typical coating weight that can be achieved with these printing technologies? Yeah. In detail, it needs to be checked with the individual printed structure. It of course also depends on the inks and especially also on the adhesives. It depends on your bond strength value expectations. It depends on so many things that, as Bilal already explained, it's not possible now to give a rule of thumb. We need to talk on this on a more detailed level.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question is interesting. Polyolefins are, as of today, washed cold. Discussion is going on to increase temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. How about dissolving the primer at lower temperatures?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that, because that is also one of the strengths of this primer technology. It is designed for the time being to fulfill its purpose under specified conditions that we derive from existing hot washing conditions, what you already might know from, for instance, the polyester bottle industry. Yeah, but we are very, very fortunate that this primer technology can be the key also to lower these requirements that are currently existing. So to go for lower temperatures to make the whole process even more economical. Yeah, and this is something where we need collaboration, also with the recycling industry, and where we need collaboration with the whole value chain to also find out where are the borders and where that means in the end. This is what we want to offer today, that the more interest and the more activity you now take over and collaborate with us, that's the more opportunity for us to see what are the real borders and what are the real frontiers for this technology that we want to approach in the end.
I think just to add to that is, because there may be more questions of this nature coming, one of the things we want to do more of is, as I mentioned earlier, when you're genuinely trying, and I think the whole industry, I can see this on LinkedIn, I can see it everywhere, the whole industry is trying to genuinely mitigate the challenge we have in the environment with transforming the plastics industry. A lot of excellent players are in this, and we're all in it together. Gone are the days where you can have bilateral discussions and the thing gets solved. We need to work together. And we shouldn't stop from bringing half-baked, first thought out, proof of principle solutions into the public domain and fine-tuning and optimizing them together. We can't, in some cases you can, in some cases we can't. And we're in a situation now where we've got a patent pending solution here, yeah, and it is technically proven. But to get it to a level where it can be commercialized for brand owners to be reliable with all the supply chain constraints that they have and the consumer requirements, etc., and all the legal aspects that everybody has to cover up for their own risk management, we need a far deeper collaboration at many levels, yeah, to fine-tune this and drive this forward. It won't be enough to preempt a lot of the answers here. And one of the things we're looking for actually out of this conversation as well is to see which brand owners, which brave recycling partners, who's going to come forward with us, say, let's take this as one step forward for flexibles to enable multi-layer structures that can't be moved to monolayer structures for a whole host of reasons, barrier requirements, shelf life requirements, as a first step to be able to manage this in a process. So what we're missing now is a process at an industrial scale to drive this forward. So, thank you.
Okay, great. Next question. In a steady state situation, I suppose a specific collect channel is also needed for the delaminating structure, or can they be mixed with other structures not containing delaminates?
Yeah, this is indeed also something we consider very carefully, because it is true, whenever you mix materials, structures that are intended to be delaminated with structures that are probably not prepared, you might end up in a situation that is that becomes difficult to handle for the recycler. And that means, in the end, one aspect here where we also need the full support, the full contribution of the value chain is we also need to make sure that a proper sorting of this material can take place. So this is, for instance, where we also talk to companies who provide sorting technologies, who are able to finally differentiate between either a packaging that can be delaminated and a packaging that is not yet intended to end up in this recycling stream. And I'm pretty sure that also based on what is already existing today, and I'm thinking about these activities, for instance, under the Holy Grail umbrella, that this can really help us in the future to make sure that in this stream only packaging ends up that is intended to be delaminated, to make sure that the result in the end fulfills the expectation, not just of the recycler, but also of those who pick up the post-consumer recyclate to make a new packaging out of it.
Great, thank you. Next question. I think this has been touched on, but it might be worthwhile just to go into it in a little bit more detail. Implementers are the printers, major beneficiaries are the recyclers. Who will be the main drivers for the rollout? Will it be brand owners?
Well, I would say as a starting point, yes, because brand owners have made the pledges, and I'm very happy that they have, because it's leadership at its best. And now the industry needs to pull along to help enable that. And so if brand owners pull on the system, and if we can get enough financial incentives to get the whole circular economy moving, then things should start to fall into place.
Great. A question, is the primer made from renewable sources?
The primer for the time being is based on a fossil source. This is something, let's say, that we can also take into consideration at a later stage. But I think just taking into consideration that you apply a rather tiny layer of a material to save basically more than 95% in weight of a packaging structure, I think that is at least for the beginning something that we should be able to digest. But yeah, for the time being, it's material that is not based on a renewable source. That is correct.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I think this is the last question that I see. So please type your last questions in if you have one more, but when will such delamination and de-inking processes become a reality?
As soon as we can make this into a commercial reality. Let's put it this way, we're ready. This primer is ready for a brand owner to incorporate into their structures today. Yeah, to be really, really clear. So if brand owners want to be recycle ready with this structure, it can be incorporated today. Claims can be made about this today, and we can, the industry can set itself up. My suspicion is that this needs enough of a pull also to incentivize the recycling industry to put the processes in place to make it happen. I mean, we're going to be in a constant chicken and egg situation in our journey towards 2030, frankly, in this industry. Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of cost, a lot of front-end investment, and a lot of risk in this whole process. And until we've really got the EPR fees working, again, we've got the financial incentives in place to enable all the technical aspects to go through, we're going to be struggling. It's going to depend on individual leadership, on individual companies brave enough to come forward and try something. And so, we can't emphasize more that we need the circular economy to come into play sooner than later. But this reality can happen today, in part, with incorporating the primer into your structure. And if more of that happens, then hopefully there's an incentive to put the process in place to enable this to be processed through.
Great. Okay, I'm getting more questions into my inbox here. So one is, how much impact on ink adhesion will take place on recycled film used in subsequent packaging?
Yeah, well, the overall impact of the ink. So we need to be aware that in the end, when we wash off the inks and the adhesive layer out of the structure, the ink itself, it remains for the time being as a non-recyclable sludge. That is basically the residue that we have to take care of, let's say with conventional disposal systems. Yeah. This is definitely also something where we can think about applying ink systems that, for instance, are based on a renewable source to make sure that these ink systems provide as low as possible environmental impact. Yeah. So definitely there are things that we need to discuss. Let's say on a specific level. To make sure that in the end, the ink system, from a technical point of view, has all the necessary properties, and on the other hand, of course, it needs still to fit in this situation that within a certain time, at a given temperature, this process works smoothly and quantitatively to really yield the clean material in the end.
Okay, fantastic. And then I really do think that this is the last one now. The delaminable packaging is collected with normal post-consumer waste, but needs to be separated to undergo the delamination process, correct? So how is this managed?
Yeah, I think that is closely related to the question we just had in terms of how to make sure that a smart sorting process ensures that this material that can be delaminated is sorted out of the post-consumer waste stream. Yeah. And that is something where we are already involved in discussions, for instance, with people from the Holy Grail organization to see what are sophisticated sorting technologies that can help and that are, let's say, implementable, to see that we have no mix of different materials that in the end create problems at the recycler, but to ensure with this sorting technology that waste streams are selected and the material that is designed to be delaminated also ends up in a hot washing process to make sure that that the reward, that the clean recyclates are coming out of the process.
Great, thank you. And we have more questions coming in, but we're very happy to see how interested you are. So the question is, with regard to de-inkability and paper/cardboard, INGEDE came up with a de-inkability score, which is either good, fair, poor, etc. Could the same be done for de-inkability of plastics, rigid and or flexible?
Yep, it's just a matter of for instance, like Ingede picking this up for the paper recycling industry. It's just a matter of associations from the plastic recycling industry or from the plastic recycling industries to consider a similar thing. From my point of view, we are open for such a discussion to see that in the end there is a neutral evaluation scheme that tells the industry this is a solution that leads to the intended result on a neutral scale. I think that's quite important. So I think that is definitely something we are looking forward to see something like this coming up.
Okay, great. And that is the final question. So with that, I think we can end off. I would just like to, again, thank our presenters very much for being here and for giving us their time and for answering all the questions. And of course, I would like to thank all of our attendees for asking these wonderful questions and for staying online. And please keep your eyes peeled for future webinars that will be coming your way. And as I said before, this webinar has been recorded and the recording will be available pretty soon in the next couple of days. So with that, have a lovely day and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.